Hello, church. It's another Friday and another day closer to Jesus. Today, I'd like to share with those listening about the providence of God. You know, before I woke up, I realized some things the other day that God reminded me that His hand has always been interceding for me in my life. When things just didn't seem to be possible for me to do, God made it happen. Some of the examples would be, for instance, one time we had a house that didn't have central air conditioning, and I didn't have the income to get it. But one of my customers actually took her unit out and put a brand new one in after she had just serviced the old unit. Called me up and said, "Hey, I've got an AC for you. If you want it, come get it." And so, of course, I asked her, "Well, how much you want for it?" She said, "I'm not in the AC business. Just come get it." So I went and checked it, and my AC guy went and checked it, and he said, "Yeah, it's good." So I got a whole heating. I already had the heating, central heat in for $600. And then I got added the compressor and everything I needed for AC. So that's just one example of the providence of God in my life. And of course, the main one is where I got to know my wife years ago when I was in New Mexico. So anyway, the providence of God, it came to my mind is how blessed we are to have God's provision. So I looked up the definition, and from the Latin, it means to see beforehand. God, this is God seeing things beforehand. It's not like He's a fortune teller by any means, but He attends to every detail in our life, and He's the source of all comfort. So what is the providence of God? He sees, He sustains, He directs all things to His divine plan, and God is active. He's involved in making sure that His purposes are fulfilled. So what do we conclude about that? Well, nothing happens by chance. Every detail in life fits into God's greater purpose. So here's some examples I found in the Bible. In Genesis 50:20, it talks about Joseph. Remember when he was thrown into the pit? His brothers meant harm for him. God turned around and he saved nations. And as a result of that, Joseph became, very powerful in their nation. And that betrayal saved many other nations from famine. And Esther 4:14, a Jewish girl, she became queen, quote, for such a time as this. You have to read the story. It's in Esther chapter 4. Go ahead and look that up, and it's a wonderful story. And in Ruth, chapter 2, verse 3, that's another happening, just happened to be there, the right time, the right place, to glean in Boaz's field. A divine coincidence that led, guess what, to the lineage of Jesus Christ. So God's providence was in action during that time. Also in my notes here, you can look at Acts chapter 2, verse 23. Jesus came about. It's even the crucifixion was under God's plan. So the crucifixion brought salvation to you and me. Jesus paid the price for my sin and your sin. His blood cleanses us from all that, so we can go before a holy God when we're freed from this body, when we're dead and in heaven. So we can know that God is never surprised. He's always working, even when we can't see it. Also, God, His providence, He reaches into every area of our lives, the good, the bad, and the uncertain. So how does He do that? Well, here are some more examples. Well, He does it in guidance. God orders our footsteps, Proverbs 16:9. He also does it in provision, just as I mentioned earlier. He supplies our needs, Philippians 4:19. And in protection, even hardships are used for our growth, in James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. So as we surrender our lives over to the Lord day by day, a few things we can do to live under the light of God's providence. Here's just a few, okay? Remember, God provided the cloud in the desert while the children of Israel were wandering around for 40 years. He provided a cloud to protect them from the harshness of the sun. God's provision. So first of all, we can trust his plan even when life doesn't make sense. Look at Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Second, we can be patient to God's timing. It's perfect. His delays are not his denials. Habakkuk 2:3, which I have right here. I'd like to read it to you because it's powerful. It says, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." God's time is perfect on everything. We just have to learn patience. So we can also finally be thankful. Gratitude grows when we believe God is in control. First Thessalonians 5:18, it says, "In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God." So when we accept God's providence, we stop asking, why me? And then we start asking, well, what is God trying to teach me? So if we come before God's providence with that kind of attitude, we can probably learn a lot of things about ourselves and our circumstances. So we can face uncertainty with confidence when we do that. We can see trials as tools and not tragedy. We can rest knowing that God is weaving every thread in our lives for his glory. And know the will of God will never take you, that the grace of God cannot keep you. Folks, I pray that you have a wonderful day and that you can see your life in the light of God's providence and therefore experience God's peace. Shalom.